Welcome back. I'm Andrew, your crypto guy on the internet, and something rather frightening has occurred on the Bitcoin weekly chart. Market Cipher, the best indicator in the world, has a blood diamond on the weekly candle. That's never happened before. And so some people are panic selling simply on this one indication. I would argue against it in many ways. First, this is a weekly candle, and it's Tuesday, okay? It ends Sunday night. And as we know with cryptocurrency, 5 days is a long time in crypto. Things change. And we just got a double whammy of bad news with the CPI data, recession fears, everybody around the world's on fire. It was a lot of bad news all at once, but we're still here, okay? So this hasn't confirmed yet until Sunday. So it has to continue to be just as terrible all the way to Sunday. And I don't think that's likely. But that is something to be aware of. Now, generally, when I'm making a move, and I'm an idiot, but any halfway smart trader does not make a move based on one indicator. So, for instance, if I'm looking at Bitcoin 30-minute, and I'm considering making a move, I'm looking at trade volume, the RSI. I'm looking at the money flow, the momentum. I need 5 things, the news stories, 5, 6 things, all to point in the same direction for me to make a buy or a sell. Okay, and even then, I'm wrong 45% of the time. That's with 5 or 6 indications all pointing do this. And I'm still wrong almost half the time. So if we have one indication that's not even confirmed yet, saying that we're all fucked, even though Market Cipher is incredible, I wouldn't panic on this just yet because it's not enough for me to make a move in any scenario. Okay, so then I'm seeing, and this is actually a bullish sign. When you see a lot of headlines saying that it's the end of the world, it's usually the opposite happens. When you see a lot of signs going, everything's amazing, time to buy, that's when it dumps. Okay, it does the opposite. And lately I'm seeing a lot of fear. Okay, let's look at the fear and greed. Remember yesterday? The last time we talked, it was in the 30s. It actually hit 20, and now it's back up to 25. Okay? So yesterday was extreme fear, as we predicted, all the way to 20. That's like, we're gonna die. And then it came back to 25 because they went, okay, we're all still here. All right, we're back at 40K. It looks kind of stable. We'll be all right. Okay? So I think we have some room to go down further. This isn't the bottom, but the bottom isn't 20K. All right, I would say our local bottom is 37 to 38, which is very likely to, we're going to visit that probably. But we can also have equal chance of bouncing back up to this, what was support. Okay, it was a resistance level. It's about 44 and a half or so. We're probably going to revisit that in the coming weeks and get rejected and be sent back down and around where we are now. Nothing that exciting. So when people come out and they say Bitcoin's going to 10K, 12K, okay, it's over. Those are the same people, but on the opposite end, that say Bitcoin's going to 100K next month. It's like, yeah, maybe. Those people on the extremes are usually the people you ignore. Whether you're talking about the market or you're talking about politics, the people on the extremes are going to hang on a second. Like, think for a minute. Realistically, we're going to be somewhere in between. Okay? That's where normal people are. And the majority of people are relatively normal. So let's argue the case of Bitcoin going to 20K versus $1 million apiece. What would have to happen for either of those? And this is why it's actually more likely to go to $1 million than it is to go to 0, okay? Now, Peter Schiff, I love the guy. He's a big gold guy. But for the past 12 years, every day, he says Bitcoin's a big scam and it's going to 0. Now, the only way that Bitcoin goes to zero at this point is if a giant asteroid hits the Earth and you look at your phone while you're burning and go, oh, it went to zero, and then you die. Because Bitcoin would be worth zero when everything else is worth zero, because there are no humans left. That's the only way Bitcoin would hit zero. Now, for Bitcoin to hit 1 million, two things need to happen. And these two things are possible. First, you need clarity with regulation, regulatory clarity, okay? And we're working on that as a nation. Everybody's trying to figure out how to regulate cryptocurrency in the healthiest way. So India tried, but they came a little too greedy and they killed their trade volume, okay? They taxed it too much, scared everybody away. The United States saw that and went, well, we gotta hurry up, okay? We can't ignore this cryptocurrency stuff. We can't shit on it anymore. We know crypto's here to stay. We need to utilize it because it's very powerful technology. So we need to get some regulatory clarity on this. And that's when that happens, assuming it doesn't reach too far, then you start getting major institutional money. And this is what causes the $1 million. So right now, where we're at with Bitcoin is pretty good. At one point, Bitcoin was one Bitcoin to $1, and now it's $40,000 for one Bitcoin. Okay, so Bitcoin's doing something right. Okay, now right now we have private wealth, billionaires buying Bitcoin and holding on to it. They're not selling it. Then you have hedge funds buying into Bitcoin and they're not selling it. So you have, and then you have some obscure countries buying Bitcoin as a backup plan for their own failing currency. Okay, that's already happening. And we have all that on our side already. But if you get the major institutions, which would happen with a spot Bitcoin ETF, okay, meaning you could invest in it as you would a stock. So it would be some kind of derivative that's tied to the value of Bitcoin. They could invest in it like shares in a stock. And then you have major institutions like Vanguard adding Bitcoin to their portfolio. And Vanguard, for instance, controls 1 million people's retirement accounts, okay? Now, if you consider all of that money, major institutional money is $26 trillion. And the goal would be to, let me find this article. That's the ETF. Kathy Wood just got denied because the regulations aren't in place yet, Kathy. But everybody wants to be first, so they keep firing out these proposals. But we'll get to that. All right, here's another article. Majority of financial advisors want to increase Bitcoin exposure. All right, so I read this whole thing. In a survey featuring 500 financial advisors, top dogs, 72% want to invest more heavily in the ecosystem. They want a Bitcoin spot ETF in place. That would make them more likely to invest in Bitcoin. So these people in total control about $26 trillion, okay? So, and they go, look, if there was a spot ETF with regulatory clarity, it's a safe move now. It's not so crazy. And then we could put maybe 5 to 6% of our total portfolio into Bitcoin, all right? Or Bitcoin derivatives. So you're talking 5-6% of $26 trillion. Now that's how you get Bitcoin to $1 million a piece. Remember, we have a hard limit on the supply. So once it's done, and you either have it or you don't, and people therefore would trade for shares on it or the equivalent of that on a spot ETF. So that's what would have to happen. Regulatory clarity and a spot ETF for Bitcoin. So all the big institutional money could get involved safely, and they go, all right, boss, we're in. And now that's permanently, Bitcoin's never going to 40K again, okay? It's 250,000 a piece at the low. We'll be panicking when Bitcoin hits 300,000. That's how high it would be, okay? So then you have people going, look, in 10 years, Bitcoin's going to be $1 million a piece based on that theory, if the ETF thing happens. And it's going to, because these kind of people, they're greedy enough, right? They want to be the first in there, and the United States wants to be. Now, there is a spot ETF in Canada already, and it's proven to work, But the Canadian Bitcoin market is very small compared to the United States. The US is by far the largest crypto market, okay? And seeing that Canada is working out with this, we could do that here, but bigger and better, okay? And that's when Bitcoin explodes in value even further. Now, for Bitcoin to go the other way, let's say 20,000 or less, you would need the Bitcoin miners to sell off. That's not going to happen. And you'd also need the biggest holders in the world to start selling off. And that's not going to happen. The biggest holders, for instance, are like MicroStrategy, Tesla, Square or Block. They all hold billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, and they're not selling a nickel. They don't care what's in the news. They see a blood diamond, they're like, doesn't matter to me because we're holding this shit for 20 years or longer. So all of them would have to dump out and leave for Bitcoin to go down to 20K or sub 20K. And it also costs $21,000 to make one Bitcoin. So let's have a look at these miners. Are they selling off? Does it look scary? Should we panic? This is the hash rate. This is the amount of effort going into making Bitcoin. It continues to increase. Now, this one time, it did plummet. And that was due to the Black Swan event of COVID. Okay, this is when we didn't know if COVID was Ebola 2.0. We thought we were all going to die. We didn't know what COVID was. And so everybody and everything sold off like crazy. And then we went, oh, we're all still here? Okay, turn those things back on. And then we all started generating more Bitcoin effort. This was, today? April 10th? Still rock solid. Super high effort. And then, okay, are they making money? They're making less money, but they're still making money. $40 million a day in revenue. I mean, they're not going anywhere. So if you start seeing this, if this revenue plummets to down here somewhere, like this is where we were, what is that, 13 million, June 26th, when we all thought we were going to die, right? Ah! Since then, even though we have World War III on the horizon and people are starving everywhere, we're still making money as a Bitcoin miner. So wouldn't panic on that one just yet. So that's why, even though we have this blood red candle here, things are still afloat. So let's see, what are some numbers to look at? Remember, we did set a bullish trend a little back here in January. I'm measuring that. So our bottom following this diagonal support line, which isn't generally amazing, but it's a support line that we can easily see. That bottom is 37 and a half. So until we break through that kind of number, I don't know. But if you look at the volume, usually you can bring up like a chart here on the side. There's a ton of volume right here in this area. So let me bring this up a little more. Right around 40,000, the 38 to 40,000 is a thick wall of volume and action. It's really hard to break through that, either to the downside or the upside. But right now we're kind of on the top of that area, so it's easier to go up than it is to go further down. Now anything can happen, but you have a fat wall of volume and kind of resistance right here. So if we break through that, we have a little bit of a, something to consider here at 37,000. But then after that, you're in a bit of a free fall, okay, until like 32,000. But even then, you're still pretty safe mid to long term, because until we go into like the mid 20s, and at that point Elon Musk has sold all of his Bitcoin and there's an alien invasion, then you have bigger problems on your hand than what's your Bitcoin at today. So I mean, short of that, I think we'll be fine. Like I said, we heard all the horrible news already, and we're still alive. So we have the rest of the week to kind of lick our wounds and get back on track. I think we're going to be all right.